Guy Cecil. The latest Monmouth University poll out of New Hampshire shows essentially a four-way tie now in the race for the Democratic nomination there. Former Mayor Pete Buttigieg leads the field with 20%. He is up 10 points just since September. Former Vice President Joe Biden at 19%. He's down 6. Senator Bernie Sanders at 18%. He's up 6 points. Those three sit within the poll's 4.9 margin of error. And just outside that threshold, Senator Elizabeth Warren in fourth place at 15%. She, though, is down 12 points since September. Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota rounding out the top 5 in this New Hampshire poll with 6%. She's up 4. Guy Cecil, as we leave that up just for a moment, a snapshot of where we are right now in New Hampshire. What do you see?
Well, I think New Hampshire is reflective of what we're seeing around the country, which is there is still a lot of movement inside the Democratic primary. You still have over half of the voters in most states that are early saying that they haven't firmly decided who their first choice is. You see 5, 6, in some cases 10-point swings. So the reality is going into the final month, Iowa, New Hampshire, the early states are all really a jump ball for 3 to 4 candidates. It's going to be pretty exciting to watch. That's
exactly the correct phrase, too. Jump ball. I've been up in New Hampshire several times in the past 6 weeks. It's extremely volatile. The surprising thing to me is Bernie Sanders is not as popular in New Hampshire. Well, he's popular in New Hampshire. He's not doing as well in New Hampshire with the voters as he did 4 years ago. Joe Biden has tremendous resilience, but it's still the four of them, jump ball. Who knows what's going to happen?
You look at two big swings, Buttigieg up 10 and Warren down 12, and does that say to you that this party, from a survival point of view, says, you know what, we do have to be in the center. If we do go too hard left, we lose, we reelect Donald Trump. And I believe that as this...
I'll tell you one thing about being in the center. I mean, you're absolutely right. And the Soleimani hit, that resonated in southern New Hampshire, Nashua, New Hampshire, places like that, Manchester. People were not opposed to the hit itself.
Yeah, but I think as we go forward, the Bidens, the Buttigiegs, I believe Bloomberg when he gets in, and I think that Tom Steyer in South Carolina, which we're going to get to, is a precursor of what money can do for you. Yeah. So I do think the more centrist candidates, the moderate candidates, are going to rule the day.
Yeah, Joe, if you look especially at Elizabeth Warren there, obviously she's from a neighboring state. She represents a neighboring state, hoping to do well there. Bernie Sanders does, too. Showing in New Hampshire what she's shown in some other places, a dip over the last couple of months from the fall now into the new year.
Yeah, and it remains a real challenge for her campaign to stem that. But Guy Cecil, it's fascinating. You have two favorite, one a favorite son, one a favorite daughter from neighboring Massachusetts and neighboring Vermont. Usually, you could say in the old days, Tom Harkin, he wins Iowa. Tsongas does well in New Hampshire. It seems when you look at this poll, if it really is flattening out, you have a former mayor from South Bend, Indiana, doing well, and Biden, and it really does seem like we have the complete nationalization of these contests. That it's no longer you're not going to have favorite sons and favorite daughters doing as well just because of where they serve.
I think that's right. And I think it's especially true this year when you have so many candidates. I mean, not to get into the arcane delegate rules, but the most important number in all of these polls is 15. Because in order to get delegates, you must meet a threshold of 15%, either in a congressional district or in a statewide race. And so what really makes a difference once you get into these final days, it's what kind of organization do you have on the ground. And so from a media perspective, from a polling perspective, we have nationalized our elections. But if you're going to be sure to get over that 15% threshold, and you look at the New Hampshire poll, there's a lot of folks right on that bubble. The organizing on the ground comes into play, especially in the first 4 states where there's so much interest in organizing.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.